Okay. You don't need a sheet. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yeah, left side. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So I would like to welcome our guest, special guest. Is Elizabeth there too?
Yeah.
She's here. Oh, you're Elizabeth Burke. Okay. You don't look much older than your students here. Anyway, welcome. Hare Krishna. So we are going to be studying page 392 in your books here. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 25th day of June, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text 12, at the bottom of page 392. Moghasha, Mogha, karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha. Tapasya first. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shitaha. Go ahead, David.
Moghasha mogha karmano
Moghasha mogha karmano
mogha jnana vichetasaha
mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva
prakatim mohinim shitaha.
Your team 392. Go ahead. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakatim mohinim shita. Anyone over here want to try it? Not yet. Maybe in the future. Please don't put this on the ground. You can just put it underneath. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Okay, so I'll read the word by words by myself. You follow along silently. Oh, someone online like to chant?
Moghasha mogha karmano
Moghasha mogha karmano
mogha jnana vichetasaha
mogha jnana vichetasaha
rakshasim asurim chaiva
rakshasim asurim chaiva
prakatim mohinim shritaha.
prakatim mohinim shitaha. Sounds like Dr. Chad.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Chad. Okay, so I'll read now the word by words. Mogha ashaha, baffled in their hopes. Mogha karmanaha, baffled in fruitive activities. Mogha jnanaha, baffled in knowledge. Vichetasaha, bewildered. Rakshasim, demonic. Asurim, atheistic. Cha, and eva, certainly. Prakutim, nature. Mohinim, bewildering. Shitaha, taking shelter of. So this will make more sense if I read the previous verse, because, would you like to come in, Prabhu? Okay. So, Krishna has been describing, starting in text 10, I'll just read the translation. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. And then the present verse. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Okay. we're going to have a few more. What are we doing? This side over here. You have you can sit on the bench if you want, the chair, or down. Make sure he has a book. There we go. Okay, purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, but at heart do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruit of pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. In other words, persons who mock Krishna are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic. As described in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, such demonic miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Krishna are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demoniac cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedic literature, like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads, is always baffled. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. The Brihad Vishnu Smriti clearly states, Yo veti bhautikim deham Krishnasya padamatmanaha sasava smad bahishkarya shalta smarta vidhanataha mukam tasyavalokyapi sachelam snanam achadet. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and Smriti. And if one by chance sees his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. Close quote. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the species of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, pretty strong words. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Srila Prabhupada is echoing them in the purport. So what this chapter is kind of a pivotal chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. And it's right in the middle. There are 18 chapters. This is the beginning, in the middle of it. And it's entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge. And what that means is that the knowledge in this chapter cannot be understood simply by our ordinary means, through our ordinary material investigation or experimentation or anything. It is understood to be revealed. It has to be revealed by Krishna himself and those who have already got the revelation, like Srila Prabhupada. So, from the beginning, this chapter, in this very second verse, Krishna says, this is Raja Vidya, Raja Guyam, Pavitramidam Uttamam, Pratyakshavagamam Dharmyam, Susukam Kartam Abhiyam. This is another pivotal verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which means, this is on page 375, this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. So, each of those phrases is very deep and can be explained. And in fact, one of the longest purports in the book is to that very verse. So, Raja Vidya means the king. Raj is the king of knowledge. Why is it the king of knowledge? Because the premise of the Bhagavad Gita is that our identity is not tied up with this body, our ultimate identity. That the body is always changing. We ourselves are not changing. We are pure spirit within the body. And that spirit is immortal, never dies and is never born. But the process of transmigration of the soul is also pivotal to the understanding of Bhagavad Gita. At the beginning of Krishna's teachings in the 2nd chapter, he begins with that, a whole lesson on the soul and transmigration, with 20 verses. And he gives a very nice little, I don't want to say analogy, but a kind of example that we can all relate to, and I think we can understand. And that is that each of us can remember when we were children. I always say when we come about it, the first thing I remember is I think I was about 4 years old. I was riding a tricycle. I can still remember that. Not much more. So much is hidden or forgotten. But we all know we were there. Our parents, of course, raised us. And so as soon as you're born, you start to grow. That's the big thing. You're growing and changing. And not only your body is changing, your physical body, but of course your mind is developing. You're learning about the world, your senses, and it's a whole process. So that continues throughout our life. Our body doesn't keep growing, but it keeps changing. I can attest to that. We all know that. But the person, we feel ourselves to be the same person. So what is it the same that's in the body that isn't changing while the body is changing, that we say we're the same person? That's the consciousness, that's the soul, known as the Jivatma or the Atma within the body. And wherever you see anything that's alive, whether it's a plant or an insect or an animal or a human being, if there's consciousness there, there's a soul there. Even I give the example of these trees. It's like I came here in '89, and these trees were standing, and they haven't been growing. If they were growing, they would be twice as high, but they're really tall, So, and trees can get to be pretty old. A lot of the trees are fairly recent, within the last 40, 50 years. But there's one set of trees that's old growth here in Pacific Beach. It's on the street Everett's, which is just 1 or 2 streets over east of here, and up a few blocks. And you'll see those trees. They're much bigger, and you can see they've been trimmed, otherwise they'll obscure the houses, like that. But they're living entities. There are also souls in there, because they're growing, and eventually they'll also die. So that understanding, and it's encapsulated in one verse, the 20th verse of the 2nd chapter. Najayate mriyate vakadachan, nayam bhutva bhavitava nabuya, ajo nitya shastratoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. So the last line is very appropriate because they're on a battlefield. You'll see when I translate. So the first line, Najayate mriyate vakadachan, at no time does the soul take birth or die. We're eternal. There aren't a lot of new souls being created now and a lot of new souls going out of creation. No. There's uncounted trillions and quadrillions of souls, not just on this planet, but on different planets and universes and everything, all over the creation. Aja, and then for emphasis, unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. The soul is not slain when the body is slain. Now he uses that word slain because they're on a battlefield. So there's going to be, a lot of physical death going on. But he's saying, but nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to die. The body, the soul is not slain when the body is slain. And in a broader sense, you can see we're all slain, by time, by the infirmity of the body, by whatever some disease may come. So eventually the body, because it's just a very incredible machine, and incredibly complicated. And I like to say, one of the proofs for the existence of God is just our own body. The incredible complexity of it, and in fact that even up to now, with all the medical technology and the investigation, there's still so many mysteries. How the brain actually works, and memory, and all of these different things. But somehow it's going on. And whenever you see some complex machine, or maybe not so complex, you're walking along the sidewalk and you see someone drop their watch on the side, you know that the blades of grass are one thing, but the watch means that there's some human intelligence behind it, right? So similarly, the incredible complexity of our own body and all of the other bodies and the macro workings of the universe. It fits together. You know, they can predict the eclipses to the moment, to the minute, right, and everything. That indicates an intelligence. Just like if we see a watch and we didn't just grow there with the grass, there's an intelligent person behind it. Similarly, there's an intelligence behind all of these bodies and all of this way, and that intelligence is the intelligence of what Prabhupada called here, is one of his favorite phrases, Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Absolute Truth. There's a book called the Vedanta Sutra. One of the Vedic literatures is very famous. And if you know Srila Prabhupada's name, you can see the relation there. His name is Bhakti Vedanta, which indicates that Vedanta is made of two words, Sanskrit, Veda and Anta. Veda means knowledge, and Anta means the ultimate. So this book, which is part of the Vedic literature, is said to comprise the ultimate knowledge, but it's written in sutras, which are little aphorisms. I'll give you an example of the first two, which are very important. The first one is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, first is Ato, Brahma Jigyasa. Jigyasa means inquire. And Brahma means the absolute truth. That phrase came up in this purport, which simply means that from which everything is generated. We don't know if it's animate or inanimate or anything, but that's what we should think about, an absolute question. Where is everything generated, and how is it being maintained, and how will it ultimately be dissolved? That's what we should, inquire about. And the second verse, in case you don't get too far in the book, answered the question. And that is, Janmadyasya yataha. Janma means birth. Adi, the word adi, Janmad, adi is in there, means etc. And birth means creation, maintenance, and destruction. Everything material goes through these three phases. Whether it's our own body or the earth itself, there's a time limit ultimately, maybe billions of years away, but eventually it'll also be destroyed. Now it's being maintained. So that entity from which everything is generated, we would say, who is maintaining everything and will eventually destroy everything, that's we should inquire. Now, how do you inquire? That's the question. It's not just some scientific inquiry. Well, let's see what we can figure out. We'll take measurements here and there. No, it's a kind of knowledge which is mentioned here throughout this chapter in the book that has to be given by revelation. Like if you want to know, what's the whole idea of going to school? Is that, well, okay, there's a reservoir of knowledge and experience there within the teachers and within the books and the library and everything that you can tap into. It's not that you can just sit at home and start to figure everything out because you don't have the facility. So similarly, with spiritual knowledge, there are realized souls who, by the process of yoga and whatever, they've had this knowledge revealed to them. And that's what the kind of knowledge that we're encountering here in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, as you probably know, literally means the song of God. The song of God. Bhagavan is a word for God that comes from a verse, Bhagavad, written by the father of Veda Vyas, who wrote the Vedic literature. And the verse goes like this: Aishwaryasya samagrasya Vyuyasya yashashakshriya Jnana vairaga yaschaiva shannam bhaga itingana. Notice that word bhaga. Bhaga means an opulence or a quality such as knowledge or beauty, things like that. This is what bhaga is. So that entity who has these six, what Prabhupada would call opulences, in full, is defined as Bhagavan, and he's the speaker of this book. So what are those six opulences? Aishwarasya means what we commonly call wealth. You see, Aishwarasya samagrasya means in full, infinite. Viryasya, strength, power. We have our own limited strength, and each animal has a certain strength, But here's the strength to, create and destroy planets. In other words, unlimited strength. Yashasak, fame. Not everyone may know or recognize the name Krishna as God, but most people understand the word God. Even if they don't believe in God, they know what God is. So God is the most famous, and he possesses everything because he created everything. Aishwarasya sama viryasya, strength. The strength. Obviously, to create and maintain and destroy everything needs infinite strength. Yashashak, fame. Shriya. Now this isn't commonly understood. Beauty. This is also a great opulence. And then finally, Aishwarasya sama virya yashashak shriya, jnana, knowledge, of course, and vairagya. Vairagya means detachment. Someone who is so wealthy, so complete, that he or she can be satisfied in himself and doesn't need anything else. So he can renounce anything, you see. So then it becomes kind of a mystery why the process of bhakti, there's so much glorification of God, decorating. You know, if God is already beautiful, what do we? You'll see if you stay for 8:15, you'll see the beautiful deities, which were just painted. Touched up. You'll see. So you're very fortunate. Yeah, for 3 days we couldn't see the deities. You know, it was anxiety. Now they're nicely open. So those six, that personality who has those in full, you know, infinite, all-attractive, ever-increasing beauty, which is hard to imagine, but that's God. That's Krishna. In fact, the very word Krishna means all-attractive. Krishna means to pull, to be attractive. So this is who is speaking this knowledge, and why is he doing this? Why is he speaking? If he's all-powerful, and then why does he need to come down here? You know, why doesn't he stay in the spiritual world and do what he's doing? And we understand, it's very interesting, because Prabhupada would say that you can learn a lot about God if you simply contemplate yourself, because we're little samples. We also have our modicum of wealth and knowledge and beauty and like that. So what would we do if we were God? You know, would we always be, worrying about what's happening down in the material world? You know, after all, those are my children. You know, so I got to leave Goloka Vrindavan, which is a paradise, and come down and see what I can do. It's not like that. Krishna cares. He says in the 4th chapter why he comes periodically. Why would God come here? And he says, when yada yada hi dharmasya glana bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam sujamyaham. Now those who are of Indian descent, you probably learned that as a child, right? This is taught to Indian children. Parents teach. So what it means is, whenever and wherever there is a discrepancy in true dharma, and I'm going to explain this word, it's a very important word, dharma. At that time I manifest myself, I come, in order to protect the devotees, and to annihilate the miscreants, and to reestablish real dharma. I appear millennium after millennium. So the point is that we are all Krishna's descendants. He says in the 14th chapter, they're all my children, because he's the Supreme Spirit, and we're, I hate this phrase, but it tells you, chip off the old block. You know. We have his qualities in minute degree. We're anksha. It's just like, perfect analogy, we're sitting 2 blocks from the ocean, so you get a little thimbleful or a cup out of the ocean, and it'll have the same chemical qualities as the whole ocean. So we're little drops. We have Krishna's qualities, but in minute degree. But that's because we're all descendants of his, you see. But we strayed. We're in the minority. Means that we wanted to compete with Krishna, rather than work in tune with him and glorify him. And even though it's so blissful, we were curious to say, what if I was in charge and I could enjoy and be in control? You see. So then, okay, you really want to try it? Here you can have a birth in the material world. You see. So, and we can try to do that here, and that's what those who are in the 16th chapter. It's all about the divine and demonic natures. Those who are simply overwhelmed with these 3 qualities: lust, anger, and greed. You know, that's demonic. Without really caring about others, seeing it all transactional, how can I exploit like that? You know, you may think, yeah, there's some people I know, or who are famous like that. That's what this world is. So, not that everybody is like that. Some are very pious. They like to help others. You know, this is very, very good, and if they do that, then it's good karma, and they'll take a better birth. They may take a birth on a higher planet. Not the spiritual world, but a heaven, you see, for some time, and then come back. So the point is that Krishna comes in order to reinstitute real Dharma. And what is that real Dharma? Well, that's the key. The real Dharma is explained in another book called the Bhagavad Purana. There's many volumes, and Srila Prabhupada began by translating that book. He couldn't finish it. He did about 2/3 of it, and I was very fortunate. I work as an editor, for the book trust now for like 45 years, and I was able to participate in the completion of that work. But that describes in great detail what we learn in summary form in the Bhagavad Gita. And there it's described what is real Dharma. There's one verse or shloka. It says, Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma. Paro Dharma means there are different varieties of Dharma, some which are fake Dharmas, But this is the real Dharma, Supreme Dharma. Paro Dharma yato bhaktir hokshajeya haitukiya pratayata yatma supersediti. The question was, what is that Dharma or that practice that we can perform that will give the soul, or give ourselves, ever-increasing happiness? Now, it's not something material. We know from experience there are so many things that we enjoy in this world, and there's things that we try to avoid that are painful. But whether it's enjoyment or pain, it's temporary. It comes, and hopefully when the pain comes, it goes. Right? Eventually it does go. So, no, this kind of happiness, the practice of the soul, is meant to be ever increasing because we are eternal, Krishna is eternal, and our relationship is eternal. And if we can reestablish that, which is the source of the greatest happiness, then no more coming down, no more painfulness, which is not available in this material world. No matter how pleasurable something may be, it will end, and then, as we know, without our trying for it, some pandemic comes or something, and it can bring great pain. There's a whole list of things. So that's this material world, up and down, the duality. So Savai Pungsang Paro Yato Bhagavad. Now then he gives the qualification of this, and this is really revealing. Ahaituki apratayata yayatma supersediti. Says this Dharma, as he just outlined, will give full satisfaction to the soul, which means that it doesn't end. Ultimately, it only ends in you leaving the body and going back to the original spiritual world, paradise, where we came from. So, the Supreme Dharma is that which engenders, which really reveals or uncovers our original bhakti for Krishna, our original devotion and ultimately love for God. God is all attractive. Who could be more lovable than someone who has infinite beauty and also infinite kindness and playfulness and everything that we find attractive in someone? You see, that's the idea in Bhakti Yoga, and that we have a relationship, but we've forgotten it. It's buried, but it's there. And if we can revive that, then that'll be our ticket, if you will, back to Godhead. This will be our last birth, which is highly coveted. Liberation will be there, but much more than liberation. We'll be able to taste and experience this ever-increasing happiness and bliss for eternity. It sounds like Pollyanna. Well, I know from my experience there's nothing like that. Yes, that's the problem. Our experience is all on this material plane. So all of this sounds pretty fantastic, and it's amazing. The Bhagavad Gita, as you may know, was well known in America since the 19th century. I think Emerson was reading it, Thoreau was reading it. There was a bunch of transcendentalists who got the Bhagavad Gita. How? Because England was ruling India. And some scholars got there, they translated, so that it became known in the English language. But no one became a devotee because of what they didn't have that as it is behind it. It's very mysterious. If you don't have the right commentary written by someone who's realized the truths, then you're bound to get something. I read the Bhagavad Gita before I even heard about the Hare Krishnas. We're going back over 50 years now. I don't know if I look it, but I'm an old guy. I'm 76 now. And it's because I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for 51 years that it's not like, oh, I can't do this anymore, can't do this. No, as long as I can chant Hare Krishna, I can be happy. That's the absolute nature of this practice. So way back when I was searching, the 60s, you probably know from the history book, And everyone was reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and they would go in here, they would listen to the Beatles and Ravi Shankar, Indian music. So I got curious, and I bought a Bhagavad Gita, but it wasn't a thick one like this. It was very thin, a Penguin edition. It was only the translations. And I read it through. It was somewhat intriguing, but it didn't say, oh, now I should do so. It wasn't like, I didn't pick up out of it that it would change my life. You need to have the explanation so it can really, from someone who knows, who's realized. And that's what this is about. So the key phrase, the third line of that verse I was chanting, ahoituki and apratayata, what does that mean? The word hetu in Sanskrit means cause, and it means like a material cause and effect, like that. So if your bhakti is infused with some material desire, it means that I go to church, I go to temple, I go to this in order to pray for something material. It may be, okay, I need to get a better job, please save my child who's sick, whatever it may be. It may be a good cause and everything. But that's not bhakti. That's something else. That's good. Krishna mentions it in the 7th chapter. But you have to kind of develop beyond that. And so it has to be free from this material desire, and it has to be steady and unending. It's not that you do it for a couple hours on Sunday or Saturday, and then the rest of the week you're absorbed in material things. It has to infuse your life, and then it can actually transform your life. Because what the whole purpose of bhakti is, and what does the word bhakti actually mean? It doesn't mean just service. It means devotional service and an exchange. Bhakti means an exchange, that you serve God and then you experience the reciprocation. And the reciprocation comes first from feeling much more peaceful and happy and not so beset with the material world and depression also. I had when I was a young man, I had some bouts with depression. The middle of the Vietnam War, I don't know if you read about that in the 60s and the 70s. I was so much disturbed by that. I was go to big demonstrations in Washington and things like that. It was just horrible. So, and then after all of that, in the 60s, going demonstration at school and everything, Nixon gets elected, and the war just goes on another 7 years. You know the history, So I was tied up with that. I wasn't at all involved in transcendental things. I always like to mention, and this is a kind of a shocker, I was raised as an Orthodox communist, I must say. Even though I was in Western, my father had worked in the labor movement in New York City, and there was that infinite, and he would pull out the Das Kapital, not in the original German, but in English. And we'd read it at the kitchen table in the evening, and then he put it away up in the closet. The FBI would come. So that was my philosophy, completely atheistic. But it's a long story, and I got caught up in the whole 60s. It wasn't just there were two big strands. One was the political side, with demonstration and everything. But the other was the hippies, the investigation. So I was partly involved in that also. But eventually, the war came to an end, and my college career was aborted because of my confidence. I was sure I'm going to turn my draft card in, and then they're going to arrest me, and then that's all this. What's the point of studying? Anyway, it was a time of great confusion, and some of it was I was depressed. So, but when I took up the chanting of this mantra, this very powerful mantra known as the Maha Mantra, then the connection begins through the sound vibration. Just like this Bhagavad Gita, these verses are so potent. That's why Prabhupada took all this trouble, put in the Devanagari, these letters that no one can read, and then the transliteration, the way to pronounce it, in English, and then the word by word meaning, so you could actually memorize and understand what you're saying. And then, of course, the translation and the invaluable explanation. So this is his formal presentation, and he did with his formal books like Bhagavatam also. So and one of the important aspects of it is that when I started looking into it, there had always established some of these temples. One of the main ones was in New York, where they were producing the books. There were only, if there were 1,000 devotees in the movement at that time in '73, I would be surprised. because Prabhupada came in 66, and it took him a year, to 65, it took him a year to establish anything. And he had no money. He had but he had some enthusiastic followers at the beginning. And it's a wonderful story how it developed over the 12 years. He was able to spread it all over the world and build temples and have thousands of followers. And it's all based on accepting this mantra and practicing it. Actually chanting in two ways, as you know, kirtan, and also japa on the beads, like rosary. We chant. The morning program is what can I say? Is a condensation of all the different practices, or example of all the different practices in devotional life. It involves getting up very early in the morning, so that our first formal program is at 4:30. And when I first joined, in Brooklyn, I have to get up in the middle of the night? Are you kidding? 3:30, And then there was the phenomenon of the cold shower. And this was another austerity. I like to give the example. We were a whole bunch of us in this, not that big of an institution. It had been a home in Brooklyn. So you had to stand online to get into the shower, So I'm standing online. And I'm going to say, am I really going to be able to do this? It was March. And, if you're in New York, it was springtime. Like spring came like 5 days earlier. This was on March 27th when I moved in. And there was no hot water in the shower, and it was still wintertime basically in New York. What am I going to do? So my strategy was, because I had been practicing Hatha Yoga. I don't know if you tried Hatha Yoga yet. And there's pranayama, and one of the pranayamas is rapid breathing, that's heating breathing. It still works, I said, this is the only way I'm going to be able to do it. I got in that shower. It was about a 16-second shower. But I did it. I was able to stay, you could take occasion. So there's all of these little tests, But it all becomes, I don't know what to say. It's all joyful because you're all doing it together. And it ends in, we're all chanting and dancing in the temple, And that process, which is what Lord Chaitanya gave. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna come as his own devotee. There's a whole science of that. Much more recently, only 500 years ago, he's a historical figure. And Krishna came to teach us how to perform devotional service to himself. And he was the one who revolutionized it. He began this mantra didn't start with him, but the chanting and the dancing and the celebration of it did. And it was just so powerful that it gives you the experience of bhakti and the feeling of joy. And even though, because we're conditioned, you can't keep that going, but you get a taste for it, and then you can cultivate it more and more. So that's the here Krishna is saying, okay, those who don't accept me when I appear as in the human form 5,000 years ago. Avajananti ma mudha, they're foolish, and they just say, he's just an ordinary human being. Then this verse we read today, they're bewildered, they're attracted demonic atheistic views, deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, the fruit of activity, the culture of knowledge are defeated. So this is most people are defeated in their material life. The vast majority. What does defeated mean? It means you didn't solve the problems of life, which are basically four, that we have to take birth again. You have to die, then you have to take birth again, which is not a pleasant program. We forgot what it was like in the womb. And then you have to suffer old age and disease, and death and rebirth. These are four problems. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. So these are our basic problems, and none of, you may invent so many things, the internet and this and that and whatever you do, but that doesn't solve any of those problems. The only way to solve it is to regain and reawaken our awareness of our true spiritual nature, spiritual body that we have. And that is what the process of bhakti does. Is that you have so many duties to perform and the chanting and everything, and gradually you cleanse the mind and the heart, so that your original nature as a pure servant, ecstatic servant of God in one intimate relationship becomes more and more revealed to you. And if you can leave this body remembering Krishna, this is the goal. He mentions it in the last chapter, and this chapter also. Then you don't have to come back again. You don't have to take another material body. That's the whole idea. Now, to have faith in this philosophy is not so simple because it all sounds so fantastic. But this is where what we call the parampara comes in. A whole line of realized souls. One of our great acharyas is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who himself was a magistrate trained by the English. He was very responsible. He wrote so many books. And each of them showed by their lives that they were on a different state of consciousness. Srila Prabhupada himself, he risked his life. He left India at age 69. He got on a boat. His health wasn't that great at that time. And on the boat, he couldn't come on a plane. He couldn't afford anything. He had a friend who owned a shipping company, so they had a little place where you could live on a boat. And he came across, but it was so difficult. He was 69 years old that he had 2 heart attacks on the way, and he knew, he kept a diary, and he said that if I have another one, I'll be finished. But that third one, Krishna came in a dream to him. And it said, don't worry, I'm going to drive the boat from now on. And just, anyone who knows weather patterns in America, September is hurricane season in the Atlantic. And they're predicting a really serious one now. July through September, like that. So here, this was September. He got on the boat in September. But the Atlantic was very, very unusually calm the whole way. He started in Calcutta, so he came through, and during that time he had the heart attacks. And then so much so that the captain he was driving, he had his wife with him. And she asked Prabhupada jokingly, can you please come back with us? Because we never had such a smooth crossing before of the Atlantic. So these kind of supernatural things happened, with Srila Prabhupada. And he showed by his own life how even at that age and a little bit infirm, traveling all over, but he was always joyful and peaceful and confident, and he infused that in us, and he showed, this is for real, and he gave us the process by which we could experience it ourselves. That's why the very verse that I read, the first one, Susukam kartam avayam. This is a process of yoga that's very joyfully performed. In the 6th chapter, he outlined Ashtanga Yoga, which is where you go alone to the mountains and you sit like this, and you have to breathe. And it's just you and the mind, trying to concentrate on the God within like that, And Arjun, who's so qualified, he said, I can't do it. Impossible. The mind is so powerful. Chantalam himana Krishna Brahmati, but it's strong and it's obstinate. It's like trying to control the wind. I can't do it, is it? So Krishna says, okay, at the end he says, don't worry, because those who are always thinking of me, who are, my friends, they're already the best yogis. So Arjun was a personal friend. And then in the next chapter, 7, he shows practical verses that we can do. How to see Krishna everywhere. Krishna, look, I am the source of the sun. I'm the source of your eyes, and so forth. So I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the taste of water. I am the fragrance of the sea. So we're experiencing these every day. If you can remember that, you say, this is evidence of God. He created this. And in this way you can remember Krishna. Because the whole point, remember, is to remember Krishna, remember God at the moment of death, when you leave this body. So that's just a little summary here. And Krishna will go on, and at the end of this chapter, and then we'll have, I'm sorry, I'm not leaving much time for questions, I always go on too long. But he gives us key verse that's repeated in the 18th chapter. The essence of the whole Gita, I put into a little poem. Manmana bhavamad bhakto murjajeev nam namaskuru mamai vaishasti yukpaivam atmana matparayanaha. This is the version of the 9th chapter, and there's a slight variation in the 18th chapter, which is the end of Krishna's instructions. So he says, just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You'll come to me, O friend. I promise you this boon I shall bestow. Then the next verse in the 18th chapter, Sarva dharma parityaja mame kamshadharamaja. It all culminates in this verse. Just give up all other dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjun, from anxiety be free. Because Arjuna was worried that if he killed all these, there was friends and relatives on the other side, his teacher, that he'll be performing sin and he'll be condemned. So Krishna says, no, don't worry. Nobody's going to die here. Remember, that's the whole point. Jayate Mayate Bhakadashim. They will change their bodies, but because they're doing it in my presence, they'll all be, given a higher birth. So it's no point to lament. Arjuna was lamenting, all these friends and relatives, my teacher, I'm going to kill, I can't do it, Said, no, it's going to be, yes, a change of body, but this is my desire. And Arjuna says, I accept it. Now I accept. That's the whole point. He decides to fight. So, any questions? I know you may have 10 questions and you want to... You could write to me, because you have my email. And I'll try to answer you. Otherwise, another poem? I got into writing poetry. So, this is one of my little, things that can go on a T-shirt. It says, every body dies. Every body dies. Nobody dies. Everybody dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. And then there's somewhere, this is one of my favorites, the writings of the Goswamis. The Sanskrit language is unparalleled. It's, what you can do with it. So here's one, Smita Mukha Makadanda Syandi Bhakta Ravindam Tavapada Hangsan Vishtagandham Mukunda Vidichita Pashupali Netra Saranga Rangam Mamadidiyata Dhage Sangamangi Karotu. So he's Rupa Goswami, one of our great, acharyas, leaders. He's writing this one verse in his book called the Stavamala, which is a garland of verses for Krishna. So he says, from the lotus of your face, dear Lord, trickles forth the luscious nectar of the beauty of your smile. Your exalted devotees, great swans, seek the fragrance of that lotus which does there their hearts beguile. Your beloved gopis' eyes, mad bees, taste the most exquisite pleasure in that lotus of your face. O my dear Mukunda Dev, I pray, may the lake of my poor heart be by that lotus ever graced. So if you stay for the arti, you can see the beautiful deities we have here. Radha Giridhari. Radha is Krishna's consort, eternally. And Giridhari means the lifter of the hill. This is New Govardhan. It commemorates a pastime where Krishna lifted a hill and protected his friends and the cows from great rains and hailstorm and everything for 7 days. That's why you see on each corner, we have a nice little sculpture there of Krishna lifting the hill. You see that? So Giridhari means he who lifted the hill. And here he's not lifting the hill, he's just playing the flute. And you'll see. And you can see why you could become attracted. The beauty is there, All right, so 5 minutes, we're going to have the RT, so we should wrap up. And because otherwise we'll be running around trying to finish. Thank you for your attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And these classes are, broadcast on YouTube Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 7:15. And you can ask, one who arranges it is this gentleman here named Tapas, and he'll give you the connection if you want. And they have literally hundreds of my old classes here. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm sorry? You guys were ready before the pandemic, right? Yes, we were. Yes.